The pantry shelves were empty. Elin shoved aside a tangle of frayed nets,
her fingers catching on the edge of a rusted iron chest. Inside lay a salt-stained chart.
Her mother lunged, snatching the paper to hurl it into the hearth.
But Elin caught it before the flames could bite. Later, at the jagged coast, the air hung thick with mist.
A woman emerged, offering 3 glowing shells. Elin surrendered the rope of their only skiff to take them. Back at the garden, her mother watched in silence as Elin scattered the shells into the dry.
Cracked earth. A scream died in her mother's throat as the ground shuddered.
A thick green vine tore through the dirt, spiraling upward with violent speed. It didn't stop at the trees. It didn't stop at the cliff. It punched through the low gray clouds and anchored itself in the sky. Elin stepped forward, the wind whipping at her face. She reached out, her hands gripping the rough, pulsing surface of the vine. The sky had opened, and for the first time, there was a way up. Elin hauled herself upward, the vine vibrating against her palms. Clouds swirled around her, cold and dense, stinging her skin. A gust tore her footing loose. She plummeted, heart hammering against her ribs, until a massive wingspan banked beneath her. The gull caught her, steadying her descent onto a high, golden branch. She crawled toward a stone hall,
the structure looming like a mountain. Inside, a giantess shoved a piece of crusty bread toward her. "Eat and leave." Elin ducked behind a pillar as the floor groaned under heavy, rhythmic impacts.
The giant approached, sniffing the air, his shadow eclipsing the room. A pet crab scuttled between his feet, drawing his attention away. He turned to count a pile of pearls, then slumped into a heavy, snoring sleep. Elin moved. She swept the glowing spheres into a burlap sack and scrambled back to the vine. She slid down, the world rushing past, until she hit the garden soil. The pearls spilled onto the table, flooding the dark room with gold. Her mother gasped, hands trembling as she touched the light. For a heartbeat, the hunger was forgotten.
The pearls dulled to gray stone within days. Elin ignored her mother's warnings, her hands already raw from the previous climb. She gripped the vine, pulling herself back into the clouds.
This time, she moved with practiced speed. She reached the hall, bypassed the giantess,
and snatched a singing shell from the shelf. The giant stirred.
She barely cleared the threshold before his thunderous voice shook the stone floor. Panic surged, but the lure of the sky was stronger.
She returned a final time, scrambling toward the compass that spoke like the wind.
She reached for the brass instrument just as the giant's massive hand slammed against the table. The table splintered. A roar erupted, a sound so deep it vibrated through her marrow and rattled the clouds themselves. The giant surged toward the exit. Elin threw herself onto the vine,
sliding down with the compass clutched to her chest. Behind her, the vine groaned under a violent,
unnatural weight. She looked up. The giant was already descending, his massive frame blotting out the light, his hands outstretched in a fury that turned the air ice cold.
Elin hit the garden mud, the singing shell and compass sliding from her grip. She scrambled backward.
But the giant dropped from the vine, his heavy feet sinking into the earth. He loomed over her,
his presence dwarfing the stone cottage. Elin braced for a strike, her eyes squeezed shut. It never came.
She opened them to see the giant pointing at the treasures scattered in the dirt. "Everything you stole, I earned with my own hands," he rumbled. The sound was not a roar, but a low, vibrating weight that pressed against her chest. He reached down, not to crush, but to offer. He pressed a small, worn leather pouch into her palm. It felt light, devoid of the cold, metallic hum of the compass or the shell. "This is worth more than pearls, if you are patient," he said, his gaze shifting to the jagged horizon. He did not wait for an answer. He turned, his frame blurring into the mist, and climbed back toward the clouds. Elin looked down at the pouch. She pulled the cord and tipped it. Plain, brown seeds spilled into her hand. They were small, quiet, and entirely ordinary. She looked at the stolen items in the mud, then back at the seeds, and finally understood the difference between taking and growing. Elin took the shovel to the plot behind the cottage. The ground was hard, packed with salt and stone, but she swung the blade until her palms burned. Her mother walked out, knelt beside her,
and began pulling the jagged rocks from the earth. They worked in silence.
The rhythm of the shovel and the scrape of stone against stone, replacing the frantic noise of the past. Each morning, Elin walked to the well, hauled the heavy bucket back, and poured the water into the thirsty dirt. Days passed. The horizon remained empty of giants and golden halls. Then, on a morning thick with salt spray, the soil shifted. A tiny,
vibrant green shoot curled upward, breaking the surface. It was not magic. It was not a treasure stolen from the clouds.
It was the result of 1,000 small, deliberate movements. Elin wiped the mud from her forehead and looked up at the sky. A gull circled once, high above the clouds, and dissolved into the mist. She did not reach for it. She looked down at the sprout, then at her mother,
who was already clearing the next patch of ground. She realized that what was truly worth having had been beneath her feet all along.
She leaned into the work, and for the first time, the stone cottage felt like home.